Thank you. Ms. Hanabusa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Secretary and General, for being here. I think part of the problem, and you heard it as with the questionings that we're having today, is that because the amendment that we voted on involved Syria and the potential to train and to arm the Syrian, quote, whatever that moderate force will be that's going to be vetted 15 days from now, or when the Senate passes it, and the fact that the 170 airstrikes are really in Iraq, and we're talking about our 1,600 that, as far as I know, are in Iraq, that the public, I think, are getting confused, as we probably are, as to what exactly is being done in Iraq versus what we're authorizing. You also know that part of the continuing resolution was to fund OCO at the 2014 level, which technically is about $30-some-odd billion more than what was requested in 2015. And whether or how you determine what that money is and how it plays out for the remainder of the continuing resolution is something else. But we also know that it was the request early on that the OCO funding include the $500 million, which is to arm and train 5,000 Syrians. So having said that, whoever can answer this question, take it. My question is really, when we divide the two, not the Syria part, but the Iraq part, which we are clearly engaged in. One, where is the funding coming from? Is it OCO funding? Two, how much is that costing us per day? And though we feel that we don't have the same kind of legislation as we have in the amendment, which clearly defined who would be appropriate vetted people in Syria. Now, who are the people that we're vetting, if we're vetting them at all, in Iraq? Because right now, airstrikes are in Iraq, and we need the ground forces, as I understand the philosophy, to be in Iraq. So who are we vetting? Because General Dempsey, I think, made a statement yesterday that there are 50 brigades or so in Iraq, of which 26 or 24, one of those two numbers, are not appropriate because it's not of the right composition. So who's making these vetting decisions, and what are we in for in the Iraq portion of this, though we've sort of been kind of thrown off the path because we've been talking about Syria. But our people, 1,600 of them, are in Iraq. I think my constituents want to know, what does this mean for Iraq? Iraq is the concern right now because that's where we are. So whoever wants to take it.
I'll give you an answer, and then the General may want to go deeper on this. But your question about who are we vetting, we would be vetting the Syrian opposition forces that we would begin to train and assist.
But I'm talking about Iraq. So
but you asked the question about who we're vetting. That's who we're vetting. It's not Iraq.
So we're not vetting anyone in Iraq?
The Iraqi security forces under the government, the sovereign government of Iraq, and the Peshmerga, who are, as you know, are part of the overall structure, are in place. They're institutionalized. They are functioning armies now. That's different from what we're doing.
Not to interrupt you, but General Dempsey said of the 50 brigades, only 24
Those are in Iraq.
26. No, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Iraq. I said we've sort of messed this whole thing together, but I'm looking at Iraq. So are we vetting the Iraqi forces that are supposed to be the ground troops?
No.
Or is it only Iraq that it's going to provide? The General's nodding, and you're saying no. So I would like, let me
I'm
hear
nodding
from the
because I
General.
understand the question. I can understand it.
Yeah, we're not vetting Iraqi forces and troops. What General Dempsey was talking about is the most capable Iraqi security forces, the vetting in that part of it is part of the Syrian trained and equipped, moderate Syrian opposition. General, you want to add anything to that?
Yes, Congresswoman, I understand the question. I can see how it can be confusing. What we are doing today in Iraq is we are first and foremost securing U.S. government facilities and U.S. government personnel, American citizens in Iraq. We have two operating centers, one in Erbil and one in Baghdad, designed to facilitate the Iraqi security forces operations. We advise them. We make them aware of what they need to do next, and we help them track issues. And as was mentioned earlier, when they go on an operation and it needs to be enabled by air support, these operations centers do that as well. Most recently, the assessment team that went into Baghdad area, the area that General Dempsey spoke to, and identified 50 brigades and gave an assessment, that assessment is over, and we are changing those forces out, and they will be advise and assist forces to work with selected brigades and divisions in Iraq. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.